We are thrilled to have come back Millie Simon and Kathleen Scavone to kick off our 2022 Fireside Chats, which are the second Saturday of the month at 3 o'clock. And we have with us folks from our county museums. We are thrilled to have Corey Jensen back with us, and our curator, Clark McAbee.
Hello, thanks. Thank you all for coming.
Yes. And tell us our videographer's name again?
Gabriele Fellows.
All right, Gabriele Fellows. Next month, we are hoping to have several women who have grown up in the Middletown area who are going to be speaking of the historic mothers of Middletown. It's on the 14th. It's actually the Saturday after Mother's Day, but that is going to be our focus. And at the end of the month, next month in May, we're going to feature those veterans who are natives of the Middletown area who are interred at the Middletown Rancheria. So they're going to be in a featured exhibit throughout the month of June. And speaking for us that month will be Millie Simon and our county supervisor, Millie Simon, who represents this area. And they're going to talk about those veterans who are interred there. So we have 3 set up already, and without further ado, we'll get started with our fireside chat. So Millie and Kathy.
Well, Millie and I met decades ago when we both worked at the Middletown Unified School District, and then just a few years ago we connected again and went on our walks regularly and solved the world's problems and began writing we co-write an ethnobotany column for the magazine News from Native California. So we're having fun putting together articles for that every quarter. So I put together a little slideshow, and Millie has some nice specimens here of some of them. So what I basically thought I'd start with was talking about how important all these plants were hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and as well as today. You can find these plants around our beautiful county and state today. A lot of them are still thriving. So the map I have next shows that we have in our county the Pomo Miwok.
Okay, let's go. I apologize.
Pomo Miwok, Patwin, Yuki, and Wapo Indians were the main people in this, what is now Lake County. And so Millie and I were going to start. There was a map of the state of California as we see it today. And here it is. And this shows the concentration of how many tribes. Over 100 different groups lived in what is now California, which were more than anywhere else in the, across the country. There were many, many tribes across the country, of course, but here there were many just living close together. Okay, you want to show the miner's lettuce that we have?
I'm going to show you a picture here.
Okay, there's a picture on the screen.
This is the miner's lettuce. What all the Indians did, and right here it is. I went and picked it today from Beavers Creek, because that's our territory, so I was allowed to go out there and pick it, but that's what miner's lettuce is.
It's great.
It is tasty, yes.
Yeah, it's like that, what they used, and that was just a standard, just like clover. I just remember my mom and them sitting out there and just go and sit down, and I guess maybe they were eating that too with the clover. I know I didn't like the clover, but they just sat there and ate it, and then picked the apron full and brought it home, each one of them, and
Now, when you ate the clover, were you eating the leaves or the flowers?
What I ate is probably the wrong thing, that's why I don't care for it. So, but I don't like clover, I don't even like the smell of it, I think a lot of people do. But that just, I just remember my mom and them going out on Riverview, and my aunt used to just go and get that with an apron, but they'd eat what they want with tortillas. Their homemade bread or the biscuit, and just go out there and sit down and eat, and
Wow.
that's all, but that was done to eat too, because we were allowed to go out there and open, sit down anytime. That's the miner's lettuce.
Did you ever eat the seeds? I'm no expert on ethnobotany and all of the plants, but I do love to do the research, and I'm telling you what I have found, and then Millie's telling you what she knows firsthand. So what I found in my research, and I did bring a few of these books if you wanted to pass them around and look at my favorite research books. And it said that in the down in the flower, you can get a little bounty of tiny black seeds that are delicious roasted. I haven't tried it.
In the clover?
And, I'm back at miner's lettuce.
Oh, okay, sorry. Back to mine.
I haven't, yeah, and it did get the name miner's lettuce because of the gold rush people, and they were getting sick, not eating their, vegetables and fruits. So it is a high source of vitamin C.
Is the whole plant edible or just part of it?
The leaves,
The leaves?
just this part here.
What about the flower?
Below the flower you eat. This round
Okay.
thing, you just break them off much, because there's tons of them everywhere.
I tried some out at these.
Oh, yeah, she had them, I did come by to look at that too, but
Oh, yeah.
are they there?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
And it does last a lot longer than other wild plants, so it retains its flavor. And then you were talking about the clover, and there are so many species of clover now, and certain types were consumed in the springtime, so your family would have known, what was good. And there's one called Elk Clover, and it was prepared to use as an external medicine for itching. The Kashiapomo on the coast created dance wreaths out of the beautiful flowers for their strawberry festival, and I think they still do that today. I've heard.
They still do.
Let's see, what else? They've traded clover, gave it as a gift. There are many colors: pink, purple,
White?
yes, white.
That one. That's what's out there.
Sometimes the roots were harvested as bait because the ducks like that food too, so they would use it to catch ducks. And of course, there's a lot of introduced clovers today.
Okay.
Buckeye, we saw that, it's all over Lake County, but we did see it, and we went for a hike at Bodie a while back, down in St. Helena. They have a great native plant garden down there at Bodie State Park. And these plants are a beautiful mahogany seed that needs to be hulled and shelled and hulled, boiled. It's really tannic, probably more so than acorns. And it wasn't enjoyed quite as much as the acorns. It was used more if there weren't enough acorns one year, then they would really prepare these buckeyes as, similar to the acorns, but leaching them, pouring water over them to get the tannic acids out. And then also the Kashiapomo on the coast baked it with kelp and other seafood. The branches, you probably know about the branches being used for fire drills and bows. And then the toxins could be used like soap root to stun fish. The eastern pomo, named for Pleiades, the 7-star cluster commonly called the Seven Sisters, was latso, and it means buckeyes bunched up. And I found a Como myth of oak, oh, excuse me, I'm on the,
Okay.
we'll save these two for the next plant. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, anything you want to throw in
Well,
there?
we can go with this, well, that looks like it's sunflower, but I think at one time you called it mule's ear.
Yeah, it is mule's ear is on here too. It's a beautiful
It's along the road
sunflower.
now, but this is too close to the highway. I don't know if they sprayed it or not, but from this part down, when you peel it, it smells like celery. And you can chop it up too and use that, or you can just eat it just like that, but this is too close to the highway because they might have sprayed it.
Yeah,
So, but this is what it looks like. It just looks like a regular sunflower. Then I just brought the red bug because we use this for our basket. And that's what I brought this branch for everybody, because it's along the road now, purple, but it's starting to, the wind is starting to knock the flowers
Yeah.
off and.
all good things must come to an end.
So Millie, on the sunflower, you just peel and eat the stalk, you don't eat the leaves?
No, just the stalk, just like you say. Just from this down to here. Probably to right here, just enough there. But it smells like celery, and then that's how you just eat it, just walking in the woods, you know. And like I remember my dad and I, when I would walk with him somewhere out on Diamond D, and then he, to this day, I don't know what mushroom, but he would stop and hand me one, but I ate a couple of them, but mushroom, but it's way different than the store. It's way different, so don't think it's gonna taste this domestic stuff. But I remember doing that, but to this day, I don't know what mushroom he picked up.
But it was a
I do
good
not
one.
know. But remember, you guys, I was only like 7. You know, my mind was too busy somewhere else.
Are the seeds on the sunflower also edible?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
they are?
from my research, I don't know if you
Well,
had
we
that.
never ate them, but
Oh, okay.
They are small, but out of the 51 kinds of sunflowers in California that are native to California, this mule's ear was collected with a tool called a seed beater, and then it could be collected, you know, with the tool or after a burn. You know how the great things are coming out about how wonderful indigenous people were keeping the landscape, you know, so fire protected with their
So
burns.
you roasted sunflower seeds?
Yeah, roasted. They could be ground with a milling stone into a flour. The roots were baked and used as a poultice, and lots of good protein and nutrients are found in this plant.
And that's really, basically, that's all our Indian people did eat, was off the earth, and the deer meat, and the rabbit, and the fish. There was none of this other food that we eat now. There was no bread, you know. It
No
was
processed food.
It was just what we picked the berries and sat down right there and ate, and made their, you guys call it a jam or jelly, I would call it a stew. Then they would pour it over something to eat it. Because they didn't have pancakes, but they made their acorn bread into similar muffins, and then you would pour your, I call it stew, the jelly made out of the berries. But it's just like if you watch a bear and a deer in the forest, how the deer stand up to grab the acorn, and they crack them themselves and eat it. And that's all I just remember seeing my dad and them kind of do. So,
And now with your basket weaving that you're getting more into, that the redbud you were talking about was a very important plant.
the redwood is, and so is the willow.
Uh-huh.
The willow is very important too. That they do that. And just like with the tulies, you know, tulies is a very native plant too. They made dolls, toys for the kids. They made ducks.
Are you gonna pass those around? No.
Oh, you can, you don't break them.
Yeah, Thule,
It's hard work, you guys.
oh, you made those?
I didn't make them, somebody, I have been making some of them.
Corpses.
Tule used to grow all around the lake, Clear Lake, and now about 70% of it is no longer there, but there are efforts being made to restore the plant since it is so important to the health of the lake, all of its,
It was, yeah, it gathers all that.
It's a natural filter.
Yeah, the filter.
yeah, it's a natural filter and it is, provides habitat for fish and avian species, turtles, mink, otters.
This is the family. But the tulies was very important too because of the, you know, that Blue Island massacre, like I told you before, how the lady survived by using a tule reed to
To
breathe
breathe underwater.
when she was underwater. And how do you think you non-Indians got the snorkel thing? From them. But yeah, and that lady lived not too, I'll say within probably the last 12 years, maybe 15 years. And there was nothing for her to think about. Too many questions were asked, but you know, nobody would want to live with people around her in a lake and being shot at and being killed. Nobody wanted to tell a story like that. It's just like any war veteran. They never come home with a story to tell you. They never do.
Hopefully we'll learn from history, that's so
Well,
important.
that's what we're doing here, is history here with these plants.
Okay, let's see, we did a little
We
bit
had
of
walnuts.
tulies.
I don't know where you guys are going now. but-
Okay, how about black walnuts? We sat under those at Clear Lake State Park. That's a native plant that used to grow wild around. Everyone enjoyed the sweet oily nuts then as now. They were good dried or fresh. They were multi-purpose plant so that the shells could be used as a game piece. You know, painted for the
I was
different
gonna bring that too.
different gambling games. You have some of those?
Because I found cracked walnut shells, but I see what they did, and when you do, they're just like dice, they sound like dice when you shake them, I got 6 of them. So when you do rattle them in your hand, they do sound like a dice.
Oh, nice.
But I haven't done that, but you know, they have that hull around them, and that's to prevent all the worms and all the parasites that get in them. Walnuts. So,
Yeah, the dye you're talking about, they used to dye bulrush root
they-
for the basket
and
designs.
that's how these hairdressers got their method of dyeing, because the Indians did use it on their hair a little bit too. So, you know, with the, and then they, like they did with the war paint on the horses, that was part of their stuff too.
And then today it's mainly used for as a root stock for the English walnut that is, you know, grafted on, easier to eat, not as messy, but boy, black walnuts are good.
The flavor
Oh
is
my
so much
gosh.
more intense
Yes.
than the English walnut.
Yeah.
Walnuts are good though. Walnuts are very good.
Okay, where did we?
We did red bud.
But that's what our red bud is for, just for making our basket. And they're really pretty to make a bouquet to set.
Remember these pepperwood cakes you brought over, Millie?
Yeah. They weren't too tasty, but they were pepperwood. I brought them back from that strawberry over there at Clint's, remember? When he had that dinner for that girl, or his daughter. It was made like little round cookies, but I brought her some too. She didn't care for them either.
I was waiting to see what she would say, but I've heard it's used as a condiment on food, so maybe it was a little bit too intense because
They probably made it because he's really into tradition. It's Clint McKay. He's another one that should come here and talk to. But he probably just basically did how we did. We didn't use salt and pepper or anything else to glorify this. So it was, and probably that's how we ate. You know, we knew it was something that was going to nourish us and, you know, fill our tummies, and that was it.
So the Laurel Bay, the
Yeah,
leaves,
it's
I
called
use that.
Bay Laurel. Yeah.
I use that in cooking,
The
bay-
whether you're doing
bay leaves,
stews or.
Yeah, they're
some
very
of them
popular.
use a lot.
In stews,
Mhm.
use less than you would of the store-bought kind because this is a real, the wild trees are a bit stronger. And then people used to use the leaves for ridding bugs,
Spiders.
yeah, keeping,
And,
pests at bay.
Can you grind the,
Pests at bay.
can you grind the seeds like pepper?
You can, and then sprinkle them on your food. if
Yeah,
you
they
want.
were
You
peeled,
can.
peeled, dried, and ground. And then they have a lot of starches and fat. And then they're pounded and prepared as a sort of bread, like she was saying here. They could be consumed throughout the winter. And there was also a tea made of the leaves and used for rheumatism, stomach ailments, and headaches. So, multi-purpose food and plant.
Okay, that's the elderberry. I
Yeah.
picked some this morning, but
Ooh, yeah.
it's pretty well,
Yeah, that's before they turned purple, right?
yeah, kind of dark purple.
Uh-huh.
This is what they look like when they're getting ready to turn dark purple.
Okay.
And they will turn dark purple, and then you just make your jelly out of them or whatever.
I was looking that up this morning because I've got,
They're all over.
yeah, it's blooming right now.
Yeah, they're all over.
But
Smells wonderful.
you can make tea from the flowers,
Oh, okay.
or
It's
syrup, I think.
It's almost kind of.
Make anything what you want out of it.
Elderberry.
I want it to smell like anything.
It reminds
Us
me of
Indian
lilac.
ladies, except me,
Yeah, that's a
are
good, I was trying to
pretty good at
place,
making
you're right,
different kind
that's a
of
good, yeah.
jellies.
I've
and-
made a lot of stuff out of the berries themselves.
Yeah, see? But this is,
That's popular.
and then we use the sticks ourselves to make our clappers, to
Oh,
make
okay.
instruments. Because these are soft and they're easy to do, but that's what they're used for. And then we can make a bow out of these too.
Okay.
So they're just like dogwood. Our other place that we use is dogwood too for bows, but that's what that's used for, is to clappers too, just not to, the sticks are.
Yeah, I found that the roots were harvested during the late summer and fall, and the flowers were collected early. Specialized uses were using both the berries and the flowers for medicinal purposes. The blooms were considered the mildest component of the plant and used for relieving fevers, headaches, and stomach aches, and other ailments.
Well, you see that on TV now when they say, do elderberry cough syrup or something.
Yes.
I see that now just popping up on TV about elderberry.
Well, I heard they make elderberry wine
Right,
also.
yeah, that's
From the berry.
pies, wine, jelly, those are
Now, that's
Today's
not what we
uses.
did, so
Right.
I can't say that.
Right. No, I understand. Mhm.
There is a caution, as helpful as it is important to know how to handle the plant since it contains alkaloids that cause nausea. So it's especially imperative to avoid the berries of some elderberry plants when they're red, as they are toxic.
Oh,
So, all parts of the plant are poisonous except the flowers and berries of, the purple variety shown here. Oak galls, you've probably seen those all over. They're not edible, but they were formed by insects, and it's plant tissue created when an insect secretes a chemical that causes interference in the plant growth. And adult wasps, usually wasp, it could be another insect, they lay their eggs in expanding tree buds and leaves in the spring. Then the larvae feed and pupate and emerge from the gall as a wasp. You'll see a little hole when they emerge. Some oak galls were picked when they were green and had the consistency of a soft pear inside, and they could squeeze the juice from the gall, which was full of tannic acid, and they would use it to tan hides. a later use was using it to dip a pen in for ink and write with black ink. There are health remedies, but I couldn't find specific uses. Today it's used as an ingredient in chemical wood stain, and it's found in oak trees. You can find galls in oak, not just oak trees, but walnuts and mahogany also. And then this is where I had a Pomo myth about Oak Ball who tricks Coyote. S.A. Barrett has a book called Pomo Myths, and the story of Oak Ball who tricks Coyote is retold. Now, of course, this may or may not have been told in the way, maybe it was a secret, but often the myths were written down the way they were told to the anthropologists. So in this account, Oak Ball was seen drifting down the stream, and Coyote was curious why he could not float as Oak Ball. The Oak Ball informs him that in order to float, you simply jump in the water, and after reaching the bottom, you naturally float up. After some trepidation, Coyote got up the nerve and jumped in. He did not, however, bob up to the surface, as Oak Ball informed him, but was instead jettisoned roughly downstream as where he was drowning. Oak Ball people rescued Coyote, dragging him to the shore to rest, where Blue Jay came to squawk and annoy him. Wild grape.
I really don't know anything about wild grapes. I really don't care for grapes, but maybe that's why, but.
Raisins,
I've never
grape
seen it.
juice, all kinds of, the vines grow up to 30 feet, and they make sturdy, flexible cord for rims of baskets. This is what I found in my research. Often they're used in the rims of the carrying baskets or the burden baskets, which there's by the way, in case you haven't been to our other museums here in Lake County, there's some beautiful specimens of.
That she means like that through here.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
That they use the grapevines through there. And this is one of my grandson made. He don't
Oh
know
my
how old
gosh.
he was, but you bring it now and then. I didn't bring the other one, but this is what he made himself.
Oh,
I
that's
think he was 8 or
beautiful.
9, I think it was.
He's really picked it up.
Well, I don't know if he's done it since, but I just want to let you know that's what they're.
Yeah, around the rim. Very strong for around the rim.
Mhm.
It could be used as tearing it apart and used for thread, lashing bundles with it. Like we said, the seeds were removed and made into juice, dried as raisins. And early Californians used the leaves as a poultice to help wounds heal.
I used to feed the wild grape to my goats.
Oh,
I mean, I
really?
had a goat, and then the berries were just so tiny that you had to eat so many just to
Yeah.
get about a teaspoon of juice in your mouth. They grow in Anderson Springs
What
quite a
is
bit.
The
Wild grapes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see, I've really never seen it.
Uh-huh.
You should have brought some.
Oh,
You did your duty. As the board chairperson.
okay. We've done the sunflower.
Yeah, we done the sunflower. I didn't
Blackberries.
bring no blackberry, I think everybody's sort of familiar with it.
Yeah, everybody
There's so
knows.
many of those, but those blackberries are very, very popular in the Indians a long, long time ago. Plus with the bears and the deer, and I know somebody was telling me how their dog eats these, the black raspberry we gotta come to. Very gently, he will nuzzle a berry off
Oh,
and eat.
yeah.
But
He's smart.
I imagine that's all the animals, probably how they eat them.
Very
The bears-
carefully.
Mhm.
Yeah, with those thorns. Most of the berries we see today are the ground creeping blackberries. No, the ground creeping blackberries were the ones in old times. Now, most are the introduced Himalayan blackberries that we see everywhere.
And then I wanted to, they did about the, I've never seen a black raspberry,
Oh,
but this is
That's
one.
beautiful.
And thank you, Chris, for bringing this.
Welcome.
But that's a black raspberry, not the red raspberry, but that's the black one.
I discovered these up on Cobb Mountain about 4 years ago, that I
Really?
found one, actually.
Yeah.
I found one, and the next year there were like, I found 4 or 5 of them, and now they're all over the
Oh, yes,
place.
you got
Those
that.
And
little
they're kind of
seeds,
pushing
yeah.
the blackberries out.
oh.
I think it's because of the drought. I think they're a little more drought tolerant than the Himalayan blackberries that we're in the burn scar, so.
Yes.
But they're delicious, more subtle flavored than a blackberry and not as sweet.
Yeah.
And they're blooming now. They
Yeah,
bloom and fruit about a month before the blackberries.
Okay.
They're
And the
just starting
blackberries,
to
some
bloom.
come out in July and August though.
Well, they're early. I mean, last year they bloomed in May, I think, and the year before that they were fruiting in June.
But that's
And
new to me. I've never
Last
seen
year
a
they fruited in May, and they're,
black raspberry. Well, that's good that you found some too.
they're yummy.
Oh, I guess
See
they
if I
are.
can get it to move.
Yummy. I bet they are.
We run the gamut of all our.
No, oh no, we have more slides. We're just trying to help them with.
What time is this?
Ooh, the great pine, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Those are big pine cones, aren't they? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're big pine cones. And I had some seeds too. I had them in a cup
Oh.
of those too.
Well, you brought so many specimens.
You could hurt yourself if you're underneath one of those.
Oh,
little
yeah.
fall
Yeah,
out.
they break your
I
car
mean,
windows
it's-
too when you
Oh, yeah.
pass
Yeah,
it on.
they're at least 2 pounds. These,
They're just like a coconut
Mhm.
tree or a
Mhm.
palm tree. But
But
they-
more deadly because of those spikes on there.
yes.
I
These,
heard that in Hawaii though, because they said those coconuts, they do kill some people when it hits them on the
Yeah.
head.
Mhm.
So
very
I
heavy.
imagine these, yeah, I think about that every time, but I see they cut one tree pretty close to right next door to Perry's there. They didn't
Mhm.
trim that, but the
Oh.
other side hangs. But
Yeah, so the trees may live up to 200 years at times and get up to 100 feet tall. The seeds can be eaten raw, pounded into a flour for soups, breads, or parched in earthen ovens. The heavy unripe green cones were collected by men who climbed the tree, placed the cones in hot ash to make a syrup or a pitch to relieve rheumatism. The branches were made into a cooking utensil, and the 8-inch needles were sometimes used for basketry or bed coverings. And the dead limbs were sometimes burnt to treat spider bites.
And the seeds, sometimes they drill a hole from the top to the bottom, and then they use that on the necklace.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be beautiful.
Can we get 2 weeks? Acorns?
I have a pine nut myth, but
Go ahead.
it's a little bit lengthy.
We're the only ones
Okay.
here. I don't see nobody working on us.
Pine nut myth. There are many Native American myths which revolve around the pine nuts. This one is the story of Wood Rat and Pine Nut Man. In the story, Wood Rat found Pine Nut Man and the place he was collecting the pine nuts and inquired as to whether the Pine Nut Man could amass as many pine nuts as he could. So after Pine Nut Man plucked every last pine cone from the tree, he arranged them in a carrying pack and proceeded to break open the pine cones. Wood Rat, sensing he was being ignored, told him to dig a deep hole, which was to cover Wood Rat, as others did not want him around, as he had done in the past. Pine Nut Man took his digging stick and carved a deep hole. He was so focused on digging a deep hole that he wondered if Wood Rat was still up above the ground waiting for him to complete his task. Wood Rat assured him that he was indeed still waiting, but he should make no further inquiries. Next, Wood Rat instructed Pine Nut Man to throw him in the hole However, it was not wood rat he threw in, but a disguised bundle of items such as a spear, bow, and some arrows. Wood rat had taken the opportunity to depart to the region to Sacramento Valley to partake of a sweat house. Pine Nut Man was not angry at the deception, but felt that if Wood Rat was smart enough to fool him, more power to him. Pine Nut Man, who was a great tracker, found the sweat house and asked to enter. He was told to come in through the hole in the top, where Wood Rat was waiting with a sharp stick to poke Pine Nut Man. As he poked, pine nuts fell from his body. Blue Jay and Squirrel were curious, and they looked at the cache of nuts and commenced to tasting the new treat. They proclaimed the pine nuts as a great delicacy and instructed the chief to allocate it to everyone. But they all quibbled and captured the nuts, fighting amongst themselves over all of the pine nuts. Notice these end with quibbling.
So eventually, and we discussed acorns.
We did talk a bit about acorns, yeah, so.
Yeah, do have acorns, and this is kind of mixed. This is from a tan oak and a black oak, and it's just not a, I see, now that I learned some, I see it's a valley oak, but this is some of the acorn that I do have, and a lot of the trees aren't around anymore that grows the acorns. That at Kim D's place has tons of acorn, but that's the valley, a different kind.
A lot of preparation went into,
A lot of preparation for acorn.
yeah.
But just picking it and then kind of drying it, even with the shell on, and then you crack it and let it dry some more. And then you pick some more while that's still drying. And then you take the shell off. Then you put the peanuts in the thing and let them dry. You keep stirring it. And then afterwards, then you get the rock, the grinding rock, and mash it into flour. Meanwhile, you go pick some more, because the more they set, it's better. Because the Indian ladies were always preparing, not just for tomorrow, but for the next day and the next day. So they did pick, I know they did pick 100 pounds a sack. And I've seen that. Of course, I never did, but I did help a little bit. But I know Dee Grove said they came out there and picked. A lot of people from Upper Lake came and picked a lot of acorn. And then you dig a hole down there by the creek, or you can do it in your sink now. You fill it up with water, with cheesecloth, where they're setting on cheesecloth. And you just let the water slowly sieve through, because that's when they're taking all the tannic acid out of there. Then you do it again. There's first color it, then you'll see where the tannic acid is, and it clears as it's going through. Then you just kind of stir it every now and then. It can take a week, 2 weeks to prepare for that first 2 or 3 bowls. And then that's why another batch is always waiting, because they had to feed families. It just wasn't one meal, it was 3 meals: your breakfast, your lunch, midday, and then supper time.
A great part about that preparation is how the baskets were so watertight and strong, they could cook the acorn meal in the basket with cooking stones.
And that just with the willows and redbud and the string tied and like that. But you had a question.
Oh, I was just a comment, actually. I met a woman from Robinson Rancheria who remembered when she was a kid that they had a bedroom that was completely full of acorns, up this high, and they'd send the kids in there to stomp around or something. I'm not sure what that was about.
Well, that was probably the way that the older Indians, they worked at it. They worked. They were just, it was always that, or gathering the wood, or preparing the meal, tending to the babies, tending to the clothes, and
We think we've done a great job if we come home with a bucket of acorns. Ooh! I came home with a bucket of acorns once and I rinsed them for a week and I ground them up in my coffee grinder and I made one batch of
Muffins?
shortcake,
Oh,
acorn shortcake. It was delicious,
Uh-huh.
but all my work, it was one batch of
One
shortcake.
Like,
That's a lot of work.
but that's, the acorn is really our main meal at the time for the Indian people. Because even the babies ate it. Because that was just like Gerber now, how theirs is just all that, they can swallow it easy, and that's what our acorn was. They just, so that, yeah, it is a tough job. I really have never done it, but I've seen it many times and maybe did a little part of it, but not the whole finishing it. And I don't think I probably ever will.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. There is a good example of an acorn cache. It's about 4 or 5 feet tall. It's in the Lakeport Courthouse Museum, a great big basket structure that holds all the, probably, like you said, 100 pounds or a couple 100 pounds of acorns on display over there.
Yeah. But they used to give those potatoes, I remember potatoes and onions. They used to buy it at that store in Santa Rosa called Alpha Beta. They're,
In a gunny sack or something?
yeah, gunny sack, yeah.
Oh,
And then that's what I know that they would take. That was their shopping thing, that was their bag, just have these plastic bags or brown bags. But that's what they would go and pick. I just remember seeing that in back of the trunk, but, 4 or 5 of those gunny sacks full of acorn. And we picked it all around here, all
Nice.
around here. And I just knew it was work, but I will drink it out of respect of my ancestors because I know that they ate it for their health wise, in which they probably was healthy, they didn't have diabetes. So I will just respect if there's acorn there, I will sit down and have a cup. Because it does look like chocolate milk too. Depends on how much they make it so good like. It does look like chocolate milk. Because I know my mom had it in a glass cleared, not a glass, a plastic cleared Kool-Aid pitcher. And when I came home from school, I thought it was chocolate milk. Or it wasn't chocolate milk. But I learned to be respectful and drink. Take a cup of it. If somebody has it at a table, if I go wherever dinner is being served, we're going to stand is.
Well, ladies, this has been a wonderful presentation. Are there questions that we want to ask the ladies? Again, thank you all for being here, and hopefully you'll return next month for our next fireside chat at the Gibson Museum. Thank you.
Thank you.